some of the politics of what's taking place today regarding the Democratic Party, regarding Chuck Schumer in the Senate, trying to get the infrastructure, the bipartisan $600 billion infrastructure bill passed, and having that basically get crashed by Republicans saying they need more time. But before I get into the politics of today, I kind of want to talk about the Jeff Bezos. I saw this clip yesterday and I didn't get the chance to actually talk about it just because a lot of stuff had been taking place at work. But Jeff Bezos is perhaps one of the most tone-deaf motherfuckers on the planet. And for a while, he wasn't even on the planet, using his great wealth to thrust himself in what is basically a penis ship. I don't even know if they made this ship to look like a penis on purpose. I mean, look at it. It's vulgar as all hell. I would even have my kids watch this flight. I didn't even let my dogs watch this flight. That's how disgusting this penis ship is. It is possible. It is possible. If it was me, and they gave me multiple designs, and I say, you know what? I'm the richest man that it's ever lived. Yes, I want to fuck this guy. So I would like a craft shaped as much as possible as my white penis. And I'm going to fuck this guy as I go up, just like I fuck the people on planet Earth. Maybe. I don't know. That's radical speculation on my part. But I do know that this looks a lot like a penis, and it seems to be too much like a penis. Like, I don't know why you would do that. I don't know why you would do that. Don't tell me that that's the aeronautic design. I've seen plenty of rockets from NASA for my entire life. They've never looked like a penis. But whatever, speculation aside. Two billionaires get into a space race. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, richest man alive. Richard Branson comes out of nowhere and jumps into it saying, well, I'm going to go into space also, and I'm going to go into space first. So Branson goes into space first. Again, a billionaire coming out of the blue. So you end up with a billionaire space race. Branson goes up first. Bezos goes up next. And Bezos, in his ship, it's entirely automated.
Hydrogen.
Entirely automated. So he basically went in like an Uber ride. And eventually he comes down in his little craft safely with an 80-something-year-old woman in the craft with him. Now, from a technological standpoint, good job. You've been able to get an automated rocket system that you can program to go from point A to point B. Like I said, a high-tech Uber ride. And you can imagine what that can be used for in regards to various technological feats that people may need on planet Earth that are in space. Elon Musk is going to do the same thing. Now, the reason that all of these people did this, all of these billionaires, is because the assumption is that these billionaires care a huge amount about their life because of the great wealth that they have at their disposal. And if they're willing to put their lives on the line by going up into space, then there's some level of assurance that the technology works as expected, that it's repeatable, and that other customers who may want it can feel safe and secure with this bit of technology. Because keep in mind, anytime you're going to put something in space is rather expensive to do. And so the more technology, the cheaper the technology gets and everything else. But if somebody is going to basically put their inventory, put their whatever with your company, they're going to want to know that that rocket doesn't blow up. And from the standpoint of Amazon or Bezos, if you can have something that's basically an automated system, you can even take the human element from the standpoint of risk out of the process. These guys are basically using this as a showcase of their technology for space. That's all this is, no more, no less. Putting themselves on the line for that. Now, I don't know what Elon Musk is going to say when Elon Musk gets out of it. I do know what Jeff Bezos said. And Bezos does not necessarily have the greatest of reputations, let's say somewhat of an ignoble figure. Jeff Bezos has $203 billion. $80 billion he raised, give or take, during the pandemic. So as people were dying, dropping dead like flies to the tune of $600 million people, Bezos, as the good capitalist that he is, was able to generate nearly $80 billion over that same time frame. Now, you could say that it's not Bezos' fault. I would say, though, that if Bezos paid people a decent wage, if Bezos upgraded the offices or the warehouses in the way that they needed to be upgraded, if he ensured that there were enough people that were working at the warehouses so the work wasn't as back-breaking as the work is, if Bezos did the things that was necessary to ensure that there was a healthy and decent work environment at Amazon, Bezos wouldn't have $200 billion. That's kind of the point. And so if Bezos is going to come out and give this speech where he's basically thanking his workers for allowing him to go into space, yes, that's exactly what they did. But it's not them that allowed you to go into space. It was you. All things being equal, they would have preferred to be paid higher wages. I guarantee you that. All things being equal, they would prefer to not be working in warehouse conditions. Listen to this. This is the conditions, the Bezos warehouse. This is recent. This is after we've called these people heroes. Heroes. Because they had put their bodies on the line and were out there working during COVID, putting themselves at risk in order to get the factories or the packages delivered from point A to point B, in order to ensure that you were able to get your medicine or you were able to get your whatever the fuck you ordered. These were the people that were doing that at these warehouses, working this back-breaking labor in horrendous conditions where people were getting sick and people were getting ill as they were doing that to ensure that you got the products, the food, the items that you needed to perpetuate your life during the time of COVID. Meaning while we hid in our houses, trying to stay away from anything that might get us sick and ill, they didn't have the luxury of doing that. Heroes is what we call them. Bezos was able to hide out in his mansion and was able to recoup $80 billion despite the fact that he didn't set foot in one of these warehouses. This gets to this whole thing of should they really be getting as much as they're getting? Is infinite profit or infinite exploitation, is that perfectly okay just because you come up with an idea or just because you come up with an application? If, at the end of the day, Jeff Bezos has a great idea, if Jeff Bezos doesn't have workers to make that work, his idea stops there. He's just a person with an idea. No more, no less. That's all he is. In order for him to do anything, he requires an education system to educate those workers. He requires a government to basically build the roads so his products can get from point A to point B for the constituents of his products to even get to the warehouse in and of itself. He would require roads and bridges and whatnot. He requires a society that is somewhat cohesive, meaning you have cops, or meaning a justice system, or for that matter, even a system dealing with issues of poverty and education and employment and et cetera, meaning all those things are necessary just to even get a basis for him to even set up a business in and of itself. And then when you get into, of course, the workers and the education just for the workers to do the job, yeah, he requires all sorts of constituent things from the standpoint of human beings that go and exceed just him. And if that's true, and you add in this worker element or the customer element, then how the hell does Jeff Bezos walk out of that situation with $200 billion when at the end of the day, him getting any of that done is utterly impossible without the help of his workers? I'm making a point that his workers shouldn't have to browbeat, or Sanders shouldn't have to browbeat Bezos for those workers to get somewhat of a decent, livable wage under the conditions to which they're working at those companies. And the notion that Jeff Bezos is able to walk out there with $200 billion is obscene, to put it mildly. While at the same token, his workers are breaking their backs and fainting in the buildings, in the stores. And I'm making the point that it requires those workers to faint. It requires those workers to pee and shit in a bag in order for Bezos to make the money that he's making in order to build and fuck around with his rocket ships and blast himself off into space. This is what the warehouse workers are describing. On an internal message board, Amazon warehouse workers in Staten Island have complained about the lack of fans at their workstations and empty water fountains in recent weeks. Internal temperature is too hot. We have no ventilation. Dusty, dirty fans that spread debris until our lungs and eyes are working in nonstop pace and we're fainting out of heat exhaustion and getting nosebleeds from high blood pressure and feeling dizzy and nauseous, reads a federal complaint filed a group of employees at the New York City's largest Amazon warehouse known as JFK 8 earlier this week. If you remember, once before, Jeff Bezos gave a speech to the workers at Amazon and said, you need to defend the company more. And so the workers getting jazzed up and revved up because the boss said you need to defend the company more. Well, when Sanders and some of the other senators, I think Elizabeth Warren, said something about the company, well, they say, well, unlike you, Senator Sanders, we get progressive things done. Heads up, $3.5 trillion or $4.1 trillion, despite the fact that Democrats said that $6 trillion was impossible and everything else. But yeah, get things done. Let's go back to that. Unlike you, we have a progressive workplace. To which somebody made the point, yeah, it's so progressive that workers are shitting in bags. They're pissing in bags. And there's like, oh, that's crazy talk. At which point, it was not crazy talk. At which point, articles were released showing that workers that said, yeah, this is what I was doing. And yeah, here's what I was doing. We don't have the time to find somewhere to go to the bathroom. We don't have the time for that. We get dinged for that. So yes, we have to piss in bags. We have to piss in bottles. And then you have Amazon employees or supervisors saying, hey, you need to stop leaving your pissy bottles in the trucks. And we're going to give you sanctions or whatever they call it if you leave your pissy or shitty bottles in the trucks. This is stuff that was taking place. That's his company. The guy who's blasting himself off in space. It is impossible for him to blast himself off in space like that if it wasn't for those people pissing and shitting in those bags and for their wages to be suppressed to the way that their wages are suppressed. Amazon, for the amount of money and magnificence in regards to size and scale and technocratic capability of that particular company, it is an embarrassment and an eyesore to have people working in conditions like this. I don't think I would have too much of an issue. I probably would, but not in the degree that I have, or not somewhat of the ire that I have aimed at Bezos, if it wasn't for the conditions to which allowed him to build his penis ship and his penis craft and to fuck this guy in that penis craft. When Bezos got back from his flight, he comes back and he says, where is it? I just had the thing pulled up. Come on. Oh, right here. This creates a little bit of controversy, but it creates a controversy for the reasons that it just said here. This is not a situation where the company that the individual is built on this kind of mutual shared interest. It's not that. It's how can I make as much money as I possibly can make? And part of that is paying my workers less. Now, people could say, oh, well, nobody will work for Bezos if that was the case. Well, that's nonsense. You have situations where people need jobs. And in the situations where people need jobs, they take the jobs that are available to them. Bezos knows that, which is the reason why Bezos can pay people that little. Sanders had to shame Amazon into paying people $15 an hour, and considering the work that the people are doing at those warehouses and the back-breaking level that work tends to exert on those people, they should be getting more. Especially considering Bezos is walking around with $200 billion. Let's hear Blue Origin press conference. This is after Bezos took his Uber ride to showboat his space company. Let's hear what he says.
I want to thank every Amazon employee and every Amazon customer, because you guys paid for all of this. So seriously, for every Amazon customer out there and every Amazon employee, thank you from the bottom of my heart very much. It's very appreciated.
I want to thank all of my workers, all of you poor slobs that are breaking your backs and falling out in the thing, and they're peeing and shitting in bags and bottles. I want to thank all of you because you paid for this Uber ride, this Uber device that I'm using to just make this kind of quick trip into space. No particular reason other than to showcase it. I want to thank you because it was your depreciated wages. It was your not having a decent facility to work in, not having a safe facility to work in. It was your lack of a union by our union busting techniques. It was all of those things that allowed us to exploit the shit out of you, that allowed us and me to build this penis craft. So I want to thank you, workers, for doing that. Applause. And then I love on stage how they just giggle like that. They laugh at it. Oh, it's so funny because he's such an asshole to his workers. And so saying that his workers help pay for that. Oh, that's hilarious. That's utterly and entirely hilarious. You have people in the various areas that are in horrible straits because of the way he's run that company. But here's the dirty secret. People who are investing in Amazon like the fact that Bezos treats his workers on some level like that because it allows the wages to be depressed, which means the wages or the profits go higher. It's one or the other. The reason that he hates unions so much, where he considers unions to be existential, is because unions are able to fight for wages in somewhat of an organized way, where they can push and they can represent the entirety of a particular area. Now, if one shop unionizes, it sets the precedent that it can be done. It's kind of like Obamacare, breaking the consciousness of the nation in regards to what can be done on the issue of healthcare. Well, same thing with this. Amazon has been able to fight off unions by basically just rabid union busting efforts. But again, the reason that he doesn't want this is because he doesn't want anything to push for higher wages, higher standards, higher working or standards in regards to working conditions, higher benefits from the standpoint of the job. It's that. And he doesn't want that to necessarily spread. The people who are investing in Amazon and backing Amazon, they like this. They don't want to pay those higher wages. They don't want that stuff to go higher. And look, from the standpoint of a company, the company's job is to maximize its profit. Anything that the company doing is the stupid human trick that allows them to do it. Meaning, the goal of Amazon is not to deliver packages. The goal of Amazon is to deliver, to make profit. Delivering packages is just the way it goes about making its profit. Don't mistake the necessity of the two or the purpose of the two or the priority. From the standpoint of workers, every worker that needs to be added for Amazon to basically operate to, let's say, a default way is money that they have to pay out for that worker. They consider that a loss. If they could put a robot in to take over that worker's position, they would put a robot in to take over that worker's position because it would be more profitable. It has nothing to do with, well, certainly they should pay people decent. Doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with that. It's not about your heart, not about any of that stuff. It's a machine. The goal is profit. And that's the way he ran it. And it was that technocratic way, that dedication to not giving a shit about the human being, that has allowed him to build his rocket ship and to blast himself off into space. And in that moment, he was thanking all of the people that he's ruthlessly exploited for all of these decades. Like, share, and subscribe. Radically